So thank you for joining us today, Andy. I'm very excited that you are going to be speaking to our group again coming up in June. It's been a few years.
It's been too long.
Yes, far too long. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So tell us, so you just published your third book, Sell Without Selling Out. I'd love to hear about kind of the genesis of this third book.
Well, gosh, this book came from work I do with companies and all the podcast episodes I've recorded, up to over 1,000 episodes of my podcast, Sales Enablement with Andy Paul, and just my sense that we're not getting any better at sales and B2B, in the B2B world, and want to explore sort of why that was and what we could do about it.
Sure. Did you find yourself coming across different research and or different kind of results compared to the first couple of books?
Yeah, to some degree. I mean, some of the results that we see from industry reports about what's happening in terms of sales performance, sales quota attainment, close rates, win rates, no decision rates in sales, all these various surveys and studies sort of point to the fact that, yeah, we're seeing this declining level of performance during a period when we have the advantages of all this, great technology that's flowed into sales and marketing. So what's the disconnect? And again, I try to explore that in the book, and there's multiple reasons why it's happening. But in part, I think it's really because people are relying too much on technology, thinking that technology could take the place of human interaction, and getting better and more proficient in how we interact with humans and create positive buying experiences for our customers.
Sure.
So I lay out sort of this framework. Look, you're either selling out or you're selling in.
Mm-hmm.
And selling out is when sellers put their own interest ahead of those of the buyer, and that then leads into these sort of stereotypical, manipulative, pushy, persuasion-driven pressure tactics that buyers hate, right? Instinctively hate in practice. It's cringeworthy, and for some reason we seem to be leaning into those more than before. And I think it's somewhat this over-reliance on technology sort of leads to that.
Sure.
So the counter to that I describe in the book is I call selling in, and it's based on 4 pillars of selling in: connection, curiosity, understanding, and generosity, which are just innate human attributes that if we learn how to accentuate, we can create, as I said, more positive buying experiences for our buyers, increase our win rates, shorten decision cycles.
That's great. Yeah, and one of the things I like about the book especially is that you really kind of challenge and encourage salespeople to kind of go against the grain a little bit and not always follow what they're being taught in terms of the framework. You have to sell a certain way and do this, because that does wind up becoming very commoditized, right? And somewhat mechanical, and they miss that whole human side.
They do. And actually there's a study that had been done or commissioned by Franklin Covey, and they talk about in a recent book that they had published, that I forget the exact figure, but roughly there was about 45% of decision makers said that the salespeople that they deal with were completely unmemorable. So think about that. It's basically half of decision makers are
they're memorable for not being memorable.
Well, exactly right. And so it's just more of the same. You said sort of mechanized, automated sales, sellers relying too much on scripts and so on, instead of saying, look, I'm talking to a person here, and yes, they may be in my ICP, and we may understand the persona for this person I'm talking with, but it doesn't mean that they're exactly like everybody else that also fits that persona that's in that type of ICP. Is they're a unique individual. They have unique ways they gather information, process information, think about making their decisions. And so I can't treat them just like I would everybody else. I have to treat them as a unique individual. And so it really puts the onus on us as sellers to say, okay, well, how do I do that in a way that is less mechanized, is more in alignment with my own values, my character, the way that I deal with people? And so, the book in part is this manifesto to some degree for individual sellers to say, look, you have permission to become the best version of yourself. You don't have to be a clone of some other salesperson and so on. Is what's the way that you can do it the best, and show guidance for people how to do that.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Well, I know, I mean, even in my own, business development and sales, activities on my own, reaching out to people that I'm already connected with in LinkedIn, and they're CEOs, right? So they're also business owners. But I find myself, having to use or resort to several different platforms, because you never know which platform is going to be the best fit for them. So to your point, rather than assuming that everybody's going to respond to LinkedIn or voicemail, text, whatever it is, you don't know for sure. And so I wind up using several different channels for each round of outreach, with obviously a different purpose for the outreach and trying to add value, not just, sell. But I'm on the other side of that, call, if you will, that message is a very tired CEO who's been bombarded by so many other folks that are just very, very salesy and just bring no value to the conversation.
Right. And it's a pretty low bar that buyers expect sellers to surmount. And what buyers are looking for is they talk about this in the book, is the job of buyers to quickly gather, make sense of information they need to make a good decision with the least investment possible of their time and attention. Right? I mean, no one sets out to make a decision in 12 months if they could do it in 6 months, if the sellers would help them do that. And so what they want is, when they interact with a salesperson, whether it's a Zoom call like this or an in-person meeting or phone call, is, can you help me during this interaction move closer to making a decision than I was before the interaction? And that's the bar you have to be able to surmount as a seller. Is every time you interact with a buyer, you're helping them move closer to making a decision. And if you don't, well, then the buyer's going to say, well, you're not worth the investment of my time.
Worth the value add. Yeah.
Sure. So, and if you ever been ghosted by a prospect, or is what they're saying is, we've made a decision. A lot of times people say, well, they haven't made a decision. No. When you've been ghosted, they've made a decision. And the decision is, you're not worth any more of their time and attention.
There's not much room for interpretation there if they're choosing to not show up.
No, I mean, there are outliers, that examples are sure. Something's changed at the company, but by and large, when you're ghosted, they've made a decision.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I can't let you go without asking you about the whole phrase around death to salesy, which I've used numerous times since I read the book myself with my team and other folks as well. But I'd love to hear kind of your thoughts on that.
Well, if you're selling out, and let's say you're resorting to these manipulative, pushy, persuasion based behaviors, that's what I call salesy, right? And people, if I said that buyers find it cringeworthy, they resist it. I mean, take this whole notion of persuasion. People think persuasion is a sales skill. And what I talk about in the book, one of the things is actually persuasion is not a sales skill, influence is. And because persuasion, we know from research, is something that all human beings, there's research that's cited in a book that I cite in my book, that's found that 100% of human beings, we resist being persuaded. We have the say it's called persuasion reactance. Well, why do we continue to train people to do that if that's the case, right? Why are we investing money? So, sale, that's just one salesy behavior. But I like to ask people, I said, so, a question you'll never hear from a buyer is, hey, Ken, would really like to engage you for your services. I got a problem. Problem is, you're just not salesy enough. Could you be more salesy? No one will ever ask you that, right? They don't want that. It has no value for the buyer. It has no value for you. Sales isn't about persuading somebody to buy your product or service. What selling is about is listening to your buyers, understanding the things that are most important to them in terms of the challenges they face and the outcomes they want to achieve by addressing those challenges, and then helping them get that.
Right.
And when you take that approach, that is a service-oriented approach. So I'm here to listen to you. I'm here to understand. And when people feel understood, when people feel heard, your buyers feel understood and heard, that's a tremendous advantage for you in a competitive situation. Yeah.
And I think a lot of sales leaders these days are just going for volume and activity, even though we've all learned over the years that quality is much better than quality is much better than quantity. But still, it's just, bang out phone calls. But the approach that you're taking, that you're talking about, requires more upfront work, more research, so you're prepared to have that value-add conversation and not just dial for dollars.
Right. Well, it's
So,
going to become increasingly important. The session's kind of timely, as we're going to talk about when we get together.
yeah.
Is that as tough times start rolling in, if we truly fall into a recession, we're always seeing funding amounts of funding sort of being pulled back. We're seeing valuations drop substantially on the rounds that are taking place.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing layoffs now in companies already. Is this growth at all costs mentality that sort of obsessed people, especially in the software segment, in the last 14 years, since 2008.
Right.
It's covered up a lot of sins. And
Sure.
the first sin among many that's covered up are the fact that many of these companies are just not very good at selling. That their win rate of among their more qualified opportunities is actually relatively low.
Yeah, sure.
And you could get by because you're very good at putting opportunities in the top of the funnel. Even if we won just a small fraction of those things in the top of our funnel,
Right.
as long as we keep that growth going top of funnel, we could scale the company.
Right, sure. Exactly.
Not going to happen in a recession.
It's that old, a rising tide floats all boats, right? Like you said, it covers up a lot of the sins and things that you're not doing well, and you're really just glorified order takers. You're not really value added, selling professional. Yeah.
Yeah. And so a lot of these companies are going to have to learn how to actually sell.
Right.
And the path to do that is not through being salesy and selling out. It's going to be through selling in.
Yeah, great. Well, we're looking forward to having you come speak at our group in June. It's great to have you here in San Diego again. More full-time than part-time, which is wonderful.
More full-time than part-time these days. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So we're looking forward to it.
Thanks, Ken.